Hello, I'm Chuck Wolf, Chief Executive for Charles J. Wolf Associates, LLC. As a motivational speaker and a leadership consultant, and executive coach and trainer, I often work with very successful people in their companies. Since many can't afford a professional, I volunteer to host a radio talk show called The Emotion Roadmap, Take the Wheel and Control How You Feel, on a nonprofit community radio station in Bridgeport, Connecticut, WPKN. My reason for doing the show is to share with as many people as possible this wonderful process for helping people manage their own emotions and their relationships with others. My goal is for everyone listening to learn to use the Emotion Roadmap to make life better. As you listen to me, help others, I hope you are also learning. As a Simsbury resident, I'm delighted to be able to make the show available through Simsbury TV. To learn more, go to my website, www.emotionroadmap.com. Thank you for listening and watching. This is Chuck Wolf, and you're listening to WPKN 89.5 FM, listener supported radio, and it is a pleasure to be here with you today. And this is my first time back. I've been away for a little while, and I've missed being on the radio, and I hope that you've missed my show, but at least the conversations with people that I have, because the show, the last few times were tape shows, and I hope you actually enjoyed them. A couple of things that I thought were really important to play. One was about veterans returning, in honor of Memorial Day. I thought I have a show that I played a while back that was a person, a doctor who had found some ways to help people with post-traumatic stress syndrome, and I thought that would be useful. And also, for those of you who have graduating senior daughters who are in the process of getting ready to go on to college for the first time, travel away from home, there was a really wonderful show we did a couple of years ago with one intern and her girlfriend who were going off to college for the first time, and we had on an advisor who was actually a college advisor and talked about all the wonderful opportunities for young women in college, but also some of the ways to keep safe and to get involved and to feel included and to not worry about feeling so lonely. And today I'd like to invite you to call in if you've been waiting to talk to me and you're just waiting for me to get back on the show live. The number to call is 203-336-9756. 203-336-9756. My show's a little shorter today than it normally would be because I have had some car trouble. Now, one of the things I want to talk about today is this idea of emotional resilience. And the show, of course, is called The Emotion Roadmap, Take the Wheel and Control How You Feel. And in the work that I do for a living, I've found that I've gotten connected with some very, very smart, intelligent, and caring people. One of whom is a woman named Geetu Barwane. And if you're interested in the topic, I'm probably going to have Geetu on the show at some point talking about her book. She's written a book called Emotional Resilience. And it's pretty interesting about how you find the energy, how you manage your emotions, how you respond to adversity, how you dig deep and find what's inside of all of us, which is a reservoir of emotional ability that sometimes goes untapped. And my show, is all about helping you find ways to tap that resilience, that ability to manage your emotions and to influence others' emotions. Now, it's not always an easy thing to do. A lot of us, with the way we learn about emotions and managing emotions is really about trial and error. So this morning when I started off to work today, I got up at a reasonable time and was on my way to pick up the camera because for those of you who don't know, I video this show and it's seen on Simsbury Community Television on the local television station. And it's just it's a nice thing for the people in Simsbury who sometimes don't get the signal from our radio station. We do serve 89.5 FM, originating in Bridgeport. We serve Fairfield and New Haven and Litchfield counties in Connecticut, Suffolk County in New York, and communities around the world via both podcasts which is a recent innovation, and also streaming at WPKN.org. So one of the things that happened was I had picked my camera up, and I got in my car, and I've got a great car, and I go to put it on, and it doesn't want to work. It didn't want to start. Now, I thought, well, that's an oddity. I've never had any trouble like that before with this car. And so I tried it again, and it still didn't want to start. And now I usually leave myself, about 10, 15 extra minutes to get here. It's a kind of a long ride for me to get to Bridgeport. But, I leave about 10, 15 extra minutes simply because I like to visit with the general manager and anybody who might be in the station. But also because I might hit traffic. And so that usually covers it. But I don't leave enough time for a car that isn't working. So I had to call AAA, and my wife, Barbara, who was home today, was able to switch cars with me. But in any case, I knew I was going to be late to the show. So how do you feel when you know you're going to be late? And how do you feel about adversity? And I mean, this isn't a huge deal. I was thinking, in terms of seeing the glass as half full, that one of the ways of thinking about this was that I was at a Red Sox game last night, and my wife and I were driving home from Boston to Simsbury, which is 2 hours and 15, 20 minutes or something. And on the way home, we were in the Boston University parking lot, which is where we park when we go to games, and we had no trouble starting in the parking lot. That was good. And then on the highway, I usually stop one time to about halfway through, sometimes to get something to drink or something to nibble on for the rest of the ride home, and also just to use it as a bathroom break. And so we stopped, and we could have been stuck on the highway last night, and that didn't happen. And then when I got in my car to go to pick up the camera, it was fine. I got my camera, but then it wouldn't work. So as disappointing as it was, as as frustrating as it is not to be able to be someplace that you say you're going to be on time, I try to look at it as, so the positives are, hey, I'm in my hometown. My wife happens to be available. I don't have to cancel my show. I can still go on the air. I'm just going to be a little late. And life is still good. But it wasn't always like that for me. Sometimes you have to learn that when things don't go your way, how do you bounce back? How do you deal with adversity in ways that feel resilient, that make you feel whole, that make you feel like, you know what? Whatever comes in life, the good, the bad, the in-between, I'll find a way to deal with it. I'll find a way to deal with it. And that's a feeling of confidence. Now, that's not to say that certain things aren't incredibly upsetting. There might be some things that you just have to miss, or it could have been that my wife wasn't home or couldn't switch cars with me, and I just would have missed the show, or you have something that's really critical to a family member or to a friend or a colleague, and you can't come through, and you have to disappoint them, and part of life is dealing with failures and adversity and problems. And lots of time, the problems get compounded because of our emotional reactions to them. So instead of helping, at times our emotions cloud the issue, cause us to feel uncertain, more upset perhaps than we need to be. And this whole idea of how are certain people very resilient was what I thought I'd talk about today. There's other topics to talk about. I haven't been on the air since the tragedy in Orlando, and I want to express my deep concern for all those impacted. It's horrible when anybody gets hurt. It's worse in some ways when you target a particular community of people. And for those people that choose to do these horrible things, what's going on with them? What's going on with them? I know that there's a huge outcry to have more common sense gun laws, and I'm all for that. But that wouldn't have stopped this person. He passed the background check, and and it's more for me, at least where I have expertise is this whole idea: what are people thinking when they do something horrible? What are people thinking? What are they feeling when they commit, murder? What are people? What's going through in people's minds? How sick are these folks that do these things? How despondent? How, in some ways, the idea of glorifying yourself and doing something horrible. I guess life must be just so empty for them. It's sad. Not that I feel a sadness for them, but it's just sad that anyone feels that way. But the show that I do here on the radio at WPKN on the first, second, and fourth Wednesdays of each month. By the way, next Wednesday is the fifth Wednesday of the month, so I won't be in. But, it's the idea that we can be more in control of our emotions. We can do better. We can be better. We are better than perhaps we might be in a given moment on a certain day at a particular point in time. And so I'm curious, if you're out there and you're listening today and you have some thoughts about what do you think it takes for people to be resilient so they don't do horrible things to other people to make themselves somehow, they think, glorified in a negative way? What is it that people do that have to respond to tragedies, legitimate tragedies, a tree falling and killing somebody, an earthquake? I mean, there's lots of natural disasters, and any time that we lose someone we love or someone we love or care about or just like a lot is injured or has something happen to them that is perceived as very negative, we feel a sadness, a legitimate sadness. But we bounce back. Those of us that are resilient, we bounce back. And maybe we find ways to even make life a little bit better for the people that are impacted in a negative way. What makes people resilient? What do you think? You have any stories about being resilient and want to take a look at what it is that maybe made you or another person you know or you're close to, just behave in an emotionally resilient way? I'm thinking that that's a strategy that's worth talking about because I think people need strategies to bounce back from adversity. One of the things I'm listening to, I'm paying some attention to the elections and that are coming up, and there's a lot of talk about the lack of prosperity in recent years. There hasn't been real wage increases, and people's buying ability has probably gone down over the last, almost 20 years maybe. Certainly there are some people that have gotten very, very wealthy in the last 20 years. But for most of us in the population, I think it's been, maybe holding on to what we have is good enough because so many others have had to dive deep into their savings and use what little money they've been able to put aside for later years, their rainy day funds, they've had to draw down. And we've had a tough, budget year in Connecticut, and the state isn't doing very well. And the country owes trillions of dollars. So it's a lot of tough news out there. So how do you cope every day? What causes you to be resilient? So let me give you the number and see if we got people interested in talking today. The number is 203-336-9756. 203-336-9756. 203-336-9756. Let me tell you a little story about where I first learned about emotional resilience. It was the work of some psychiatrists called Holmes, Holmes, and Ray, Rahe. Here's our first caller. Hi, this is Chuck Wolf. You're on the air. Who am I talking to, please?
My name is Ed Woolrich.
Okay, Ed, how you doing?
I'm quite well today. How are you?
Good, thank you. You got a little story about resilience?
Yeah, I would like to share a little story about resilience. Not so much impacting today's climate and economy and everything else because it is what it is. I hate saying that, but When I was a young man, I was 20 years old, 2 weeks after my 20th birthday, and one night riding my motorcycle home, I got creamed by a drunk driver and wound up laying in the gutter and had broken my hip. I didn't know that yet, but it sounded like there were a bunch of pebbles in my cheek. That's what it sounded like anyway. So you wind up in the emergency room and don't really know what to do and can't decide how to go forward. Don't know any of the sawbones or bone doctors at the time, so I pick a name that sounded familiar, and he'd come in and check me out. He says, well, the choices are we could, put a new hip in now, or we'll put you in traction and let you heal. And I thought, well, okay, 20 years old, I'm still probably growing a little bit. So, yeah, put me in traction and bring on the milk. And I think I was in there 2 days shy of 3 months. It probably took about a year to learn how to walk again. But it kind of worked out for me. I got a little bit of residual damage nerve-wise, but other than that, it worked out. And then what I did was I turned it into a positive outlook for the rest of my life. The one night laying there sort of crying and feeling sorry for myself, I thought, well, okay, God, it doesn't have to be tomorrow, next week, next year, but if I could end up walking again, I'll never turn my back on another lost puppy or stray kitten or what have you. And I put that into effect in my life and, helped out people at various times at whatever it cost me. And eventually a year went by and I started to, walk on crutches, then on a cane, and, bounce back. And here it is 30-something years later, and I kind of walk bent over with a terrible limp. But I think it freaks people out more to watch me thinking I'm in pain or I can't do this or I can't do that. And what it is, it's the way that I've adapted my broken body to work, in physical labor or whatever I'm doing. And so, yeah, I don't know if that really suits your...
Oh, sure. No, I mean, I think it's a neat story of how to turn something that started off as a huge negative in your life, and and then trying to find ways to bring a kindness to people along the way as long as you have the strength and ability to do that, however you look. I mean, it's coming to peace inside yourself with, instead of feeling sorry, which, obviously something like that happens and it takes you out of the prime time in your life, and you certainly could feel negative about it, and just, a lot of people would understand why you might have a negative spin about things, and you've turned it into something more positive and to help people that maybe were needier than you might have been at that point in time, or at least at different points in time. And I think it's a nice story. I really appreciate you sharing it.
Yeah, it's worked out over the long run. I mean, here it is now. I've been out of work 2.5 years and, do whatever I can to scrape by and, try not to lean on people. But in a sense, it's kind of come back to me, whatever I've done over the years. You don't end up helping the same people that help you, and the same people that help you don't end up being the people that need the help. But I don't want to sound cliched in saying that it's that pay forward kind of thing, but it's sort of been a good philosophy. And, it could have been a big negative. I can remember a couple of days sitting in there saying, all right, well, I'm definitely going to ride again. I mean, you have to picture this as a 20-year-old Harley Davidson owning, badass biker kid.
Yeah.
And thinking, well, do I build a trike? Do I build a sidecar? And you stay positive, you know what I mean? You drink the milk, you do what they say, you take the therapy, you endure the pain, and you just keep saying, okay, today wasn't that good, tomorrow's going to be better. Okay, tomorrow was a little better, the next day is going to be great. And then you have your off days, but the thing is, and everybody around us who's suffering different physical maladies or economic hard times, you can always look forward to a brighter day somehow. There's always going to be something better around the corner. You don't know what it is. You may make a kid laugh who's crying in line at the checkout at the supermarket, or you may come across some, elderly person with a flat tire who doesn't belong to AAA, and you
Right.
kind of pass that joy around. And I don't know, for me, in the past 30 years, think of the path that I was on at the time and the path and various left turns that I've taken ever since, you still come out on top as long as you're on this side of the sod.
Well, it's a really nice story. Now, one of the things that maybe you haven't thought so much about is what do you think caused you to make that choice as opposed to what, a bunch of people might have not ever got to that place?
Which,
What was in your background, do you think, that might have helped you make that choice?
which choice would you be referring to?
To choose to make an agreement with God to never turn your back, and then a lot of people say things like that, but then it sounds like you've lived them over the last 30 years. So why do you think you were resilient when other people often aren't? What do you think was in your background that might have helped?
I've often thought about that, like, being 20 at the time and having, just moved out of the house and out of my parents' yoke, and don't have to go on to church on Sundays anymore. I'm not going to preach religion or anything. Everybody believes what they believe, but I do believe in a higher power. I believe in God, the Christian God and what have you.
Uh-huh.
But I used to go up to Osbornedale State Park in Derby with a friend of mine, Danny, on Sundays. We both have to skip out. Yeah, we're going to church. And what we would do is we would just sit at the top pavilion and scan that part of Ansonia, the east side of Ansonia, the hilltop, or what have you, and just all seasons of the year, and remark at the wonder of it, the beauty of it, what it must have looked like before houses were there. But anyway, getting back to your question about this, I think what made me strike that deal, as it were, was that you can't ask for something. You can't ask God, you can't ask your mother, you can't ask anybody, your friends, to help you out unless you're willing to at least offer some kind of reciprocation. And I felt in that case, having grown up in a family that I did, where my dad was more or less a popular sports figure in the valley, and my brothers were all scholar athletes, and my mom was doing what she was doing, a school nurse. The giving, I guess, was always there. My dad used to be a great organizer. Well, he still is. He's a great organizer. Throw a party, run a bus trip, what have you. So I think that was in me. And when I realized I have nothing, I'm 20, I'm just starting out in life, the only thing that I can assure myself for the future is something happens, somebody's in a bad way, try to help them out. Give them a little of your knowledge or skill set, or whether it's finances or literally the shirt off your back, and hope that you send them off with a smile and a better day. And sometimes it works out, sometimes it doesn't. I had stopped one time on Route 8 to help two girls with a flat tire, and this is a couple years after that, back riding again. Long, multicolored hair, purple and eggplant and red and whatever, dye in it, and probably looked quite frightening. And parked far enough ahead of them, and I says, listen, I'm not here to harm you, everything. What's the problem? Oh, you have a flat. Okay, well, let me help you out. And at the end of it all, they tried to pay me, and I says, no, what do I want money for? I wouldn't want my mother, my sister, even my ex, my worst exes, I wouldn't want them stranded on this stretch of the highway as it's becoming dark out. Just, think when the next time you see some biker guy go by, just think of them in a better light. Maybe they're all not scary rapists and murderers. It worked out well. A few weeks later, they called me up and invited me over for dinner, and they had a pool and stuff, and we hung around and socialized, and they were like, geez, yeah, you're really, over the past few weeks you've been thinking, I guess all you guys on two wheels aren't that bad. So there, maybe I not only help them out of a situation, but improve those two individuals' image of what they would think of as the stereotypical biker.
Interesting.
So I guess it's the giving. Somehow inside of me there was always this sense of giving, but I had been a taker, and now here, 33 years or 34 years later, it's still, you break down, I'll help you out. You call me up, you need a tool, you got it, whatever it takes.
Just kind of to close the phone call, I really appreciate it. You had a physical injury, and a lot of people are impacted mentally in ways that seem, like it. The people that suffer from depression or something that seem like that they are also injured in a way, but it's not as visible, except in the way that they behave or they think or they feel. And sometimes I'm encouraging them to try and get out and do something for others, because with that comes this feeling of I've done something good in the day, and it's very hard to feel depressed when you do that.
Issue.
What's that?
It takes your mind off of whatever's ailing you at the moment.
Exactly.
It takes you out of you're not focused on your suffering or your situation, you're for that whatever brief time it is or whatever works out to be, you're helping somebody, you're giving to them, and then maybe at the end of the day you'll say, that wasn't so bad. Maybe somebody will help me tomorrow, or recognize that I've got a bit of a, one of my oars isn't touching the water. Maybe they can help me out or something.
Well, it sounds like, Ed, while you might have been a taker at the time, it sounds like you were raised in a family where giving was part of the deal, and it just kind of popped up and made sense in terms of the way you were raised. And, not everybody gets that gift in terms of being raised in a wholesome family. Not that every family's got its dysfunctions, but I mean, it sounds like you come from a pretty good background where this really lends itself to that. But I'd like to encourage everybody, irrespective of your background and whether you were lucky enough to get raised by two parents or that were in a good family, you still can make something like this happen if you choose it.
It's worked out. It's probably been the best decision I could have made in that situation, and I've kept my word.
Ed, thanks so much for the phone call. I really appreciate talking to you.
Very good. Thank you for your time. Enjoy your day.
Thank you, you too.
Bye-bye.
Bye. Hi, this is Chuck Wolf. You're on the air. Who am I talking to?
Hello. My name is Nancy Schumacher.
Hi, Nancy. How are you?
And I'm doing okay. I get depressed, but basically, I was listening to that gentleman's story about his hip.
Uh-huh.
I broke my left hip in 1961
Wow.
when I was 22. And at that point, if you were that age, you couldn't have total hip surgery.
Uh-huh.
So I wound up with having the hip replaced with the doctor in Houston. I had walked on it for 2 months because they didn't catch it, and I was at school.
Uh-huh.
So my dad threw me in the hospital. I got an excellent man. He built a hip that lasted 18 years and 3 pregnancies.
Wow.
But at that point, when I was, it took me a while to get back to being able to mobilize myself. But I went ahead and finished the college by we didn't have email then. We just mailed the things in and
Right.
got it back and graduated without teaching credentials. And that was what I've been trying to do, and I'm still trying to do. I'm writing a dissertation now. Still trying.
Good for you. Wow. That's impressive.
But, the main thing that I am finding now, I've had epilepsy since 1940,
Uh-huh.
and so I've got epilepsy and hip problems. But that doesn't make me disabled. I can do a lot of things. I've got grandchildren and great-grandchildren and children, of course. But my husband died of Parkinson's disease. Right now I'm dealing with a lady. She's a very good friend. And her husband died of Parkinson's disease, and I've been trying to talk her out of committing suicide for 2 years.
Wow.
And she's still trying. She said, some people don't have the spirit that you do, just to keep on going, even when the chips are down.
Right.
And I'm one of those people. And I said, no, you're not. You've got a good sense of humor. You tell wonderful stories. But she's really, financially, she's almost on the bottom. But she comes from I think it was her great-great-grandfather established Tulane University, Victor Hugo Tulane.
Wow.
So, she comes from good stock, I'll put it that way. She's got gumption in her.
Uh-huh.
She just doesn't she's so upset now because of the loss of her husband. She just wants to die. I lost my husband from Parkinson's in 2008, and I lost a friend in 1998 from Parkinson's. And both of those things really knocked me out, too. But, you just keep on going.
Yeah, it's interesting. A lot of people, loss of a spousal partner for a lot of years. It seems like whether people commit suicide or not, people sometimes they don't do well when their partner's gone because that was so much a part of their lives. And people, there's also research that have shown over the years that people, when they stop working, sometimes also find no real meaning in life. And I think the key to the key to your friend or anybody really that's struggling with these things is, hey, if I'm gonna live, just as a what if I'm gonna live, what would make it worth living? What could I do that makes me feel like I'm doing something that I feel has some meaning attached to it? Because I think people struggle for meaning. Not everybody, but I think a lot of people do. And that's why, I remember one of my good friends, and I used to be a therapist, and I often recommend people find some kind of charitable work. One of my friends told me one time, a long time ago, he said one of the greatest things he ever did in his life was he went out and decided he wanted to do something for other people, and he started to get involved with Meals on Wheels. And, you got people that are shut-ins
Sure.
that just can't get out. And if you take enough time in your day and you allow yourself a few minutes when you go and deliver the meal, not to just deliver it and say goodbye, but to actually go in and visit with the people and give them a chance to talk to you and just to visit. And I mean, it doesn't take a lot to make somebody else feel special and better, and for you to feel like you've done something that has some meaning to it. If you choose that, you got to choose. You got to choose life, and right now your friend is leaning the other way. And I mean, if she's been trying to commit suicide for 2 years, I guess you're helping to keep her going. So maybe you could try and get her to involve a little bit.
But at this point, it's wearing me down.
Yeah, I'm sure.
And emotionally, I can get depressed.
Sure.
So I have to take care of myself too. When I broke my second hip in 2011. I knew I broke it as soon as I hit it, and I wound up getting it. It was pinned, and that was the end of it.
Right.
But that just set me back. But that year, I wound up starting a program. I tried to start a program on knowledge about epilepsy in the libraries in New Haven, Connecticut. And I never got anybody to come except school children.
Mm-hmm.
And which I had been teaching school children about epilepsy for 19 years in Minnesota before I moved here because I was very active in the Epilepsy Foundation there. And my family says, well, you're always just talking about your dissertation. That's not the thing. The thing is, I want people with epilepsy to be able to be employed in good jobs that pay. And I didn't have that privilege. I just happened to marry a good man, and we had a lot of ups and downs, and we had a lot of things that went wrong. But we still had, a good family, and we managed some way. We split up, went back together again, split up again, but we kept on going. So
well, Nancy, let me ask you.
When he died.
Nancy, let me ask you the question that I asked Ed, which was, so you've had a lot of, epilepsy from the time you were almost born, and and struggling with your hip that was broken at an early age, and yet you seem to have like a lot of resilience. And what would you attribute in your life? And to again, you're saying that of course there's adversity in your life, but you just have to choose to make the best of things. And it seems like that's the attitude you're carrying with you. And where do you think that originates in you? Why do you think you feel that?
I think I feel that because I believe that the Lord will never give you too much. He'll just give you enough to steer you in a direction.
So it's a faith-based resilience in part for you.
Yeah, it's faith-based in part, but I can't figure out why so many things happen. I have osteoporosis. The next year I was out with osteoporosis. I'm finally getting a little bit more mobile. And then I got a concussion in 2014, just as I was starting this dissertation. I was determined to get through that one way or another, but I'm still having to restart it wasn't because of the concussion, but that apparently something has aggravated some of my nerves, my types of seizures. So
Well,
my memory isn't as great as it should be.
It just still seems pretty remarkable to hear that you're working on your dissertation with all this going on, and then you've got all these kids and your kids from your children to grandchildren.
My great granddaughter, she ran into a pole yesterday, and my first thought was she's going to get epilepsy because we know it's genetic.
Interesting.
But I haven't heard from her mother today, but they told her just to watch her today.
Well, let me say something to you about your friend and how it's wearing you down. There's kind of a metaphor I like to use when sometimes talking to people that are givers who do try to do a lot for other people and sometimes feel like they're running out of steam. And if you've ever been on an airplane and you've heard the flight attendants and they see a parent with a young child, they'll say to the parent, make sure that when if we need them, if the oxygen masks drop down, your inclination might be to put it on your child first, but make sure you put it on you first, because if you pass out, you're not going to be any help to your child. So I think that the same metaphor works for me emotionally for people who are givers, which is at some point, if you feel like you're running out of emotional oxygen, if you will, make sure you put the mask on you and you take a few deep breaths and take some time out just for you. Do something that makes you feel good without you giving to somebody else, so that you have more to give. Because if you push too hard and you push out, at some point you burn out, and so you have to be smart to take care of yourself.
But my granddaughter says, well, paint. Well, because that's I've always used, I'm an artist and an author. And I had to, in order to get insurance, I had to start a business. So, okay, I painted and I wrote, so I started a business. And I got my insurance when I moved from Minnesota to Connecticut. And I still have the business, and I have 3 books on the internet, but writing has helped me a lot. But there are times when I feel like nobody really gives 2 cents about me. I help other people, and one of my very good friends who she gave back. She didn't just take. She'd say, okay, you got to change. You got to do this. And she passed away last year, and I guess I miss her too. You miss people that are important in your life.
Sure, and the older you get, the more frequent that happens, of course. So.
Yeah, well, I'll be 78 next month. So.
Yeah.
And my great granddaughter will be 1 year old. That's the one in California that I haven't seen yet, and they say she looks like me.
Oh wow, that's a nice story.
So I've got my kids are all mixed. My grandchildren are mixed. My great grandchildren are mixed. And that's just life.
It is.
And I just go back to that. What you asked me originally. I think the Lord does things for a reason. You go through trials to get stronger, and that was kind of what my dad taught me.
Neat.
You have to go through this in order to get there.
That's neat. Well, I want to thank you for the call, Nancy. Thank you so much, and good luck with your dissertation. And I really appreciate you calling and sharing your story. It sounds like you're a very giving person. As I said, maybe you need a little bit of time out from your friend and to take care of yourself, and so you got more energy for everybody else.
I'm thinking that sometimes people that are at risk for depression need some kind of emotional assistance. Because I've found that has worked for me in the past. I have not found it here. I did find it to a degree. About one lady made some tests, and she told me exactly what was wrong and what my capabilities were and what they weren't, and which was very interesting.
Sure.
And but at any rate, no, I just want to be sure that people with mental disorders, that doesn't mean that they are not just as smart as anybody else.
No, absolutely right.
Van Gogh was, and Dostoevsky from Russia were both very, very smart.
Right.
And I think that's getting lost right now in this country. They're trying to make everybody into that has problems shooting people. That all people with mental disturbances are not that way.
Oh, of course not. No, of course not. Yeah, no, I agree with that.
And I guess I just threw that in for good measure. But I will get off the line so you can go on to somebody else.
Thanks, Nancy. Thanks a lot for the phone call.
Opportunity.
Oh, very nice to talk to you. Okay, bye-bye. You've been listening. This is Chuck Wolf. You've been listening to the Emotion Roadmap. Take the wheel and control how you feel. The show is all about people, taking the wheel and making yourself feel the way you need to feel, you want to feel, you wish you could feel. I got time for one more phone call if you want to call in. I saw somebody was trying to call. The number's 203-336-9756. Hi, this is Chuck Wolf. You're on the air. Who am I talking to?
Yeah, hey, Chuck, it's interesting that I turned the radio on. I was just parking my car. I'm in a shopping mall.
Okay.
And it's the first time I ever heard the show, and I got pretty excited listening.
Thank you.
I myself do advocacy work.
Okay, great.
And I find it quite rewarding, to say the least. And as I listened to you talk to a couple of people about giving, it's I found as I matured into my adult life, it went on in my career that I found my true calling was to be an advocate and was to help people.
That's really nice.
Yeah. And as a matter of fact, I just did a advocacy act this morning. I helped out a young woman in court that used to work in the court system. She had a little issue, and I went on her behalf and helped her through it, and we got through it, and everything was fine. And she said to me, "Thank you so much, Mr. So-and-so, and you're my angel." And
nice.
I texted my young sister earlier. She called and asked about me. I told her what I did, and I said, "That's my reward." And I said, "It does my heart good." And she come back and she said, "Well, you are an angel." So, what I'm telling you is that I actually have a ministry. It's not a quote-unquote ministry, but it's my ministry that was given to me. And as that gentleman said, we all have a belief system. At least I hope we all do, but I do. I certainly do. And I think that was given to me as I progressed through my adult life. That became more and more prominent in me, and I just wanted to share that. As a matter of fact, I'm still relevant now, even though I'm retired. I'm an advocate for the local adult educational system in town here, and I have an opportunity on a nightly basis during the evening to troubleshoot people's concerns and problems and help them through some of their difficulties and finding ways to help them help themselves. And we kind of work as a team whenever I do have a client.
No,
that's what I do now in my later years. But I
Oh, did I lose you? Oh, okay, I think I must be on a cell phone, and I was just going to ask you for your first name, but anyway, I want to thank you for your phone call and for your good work, and I'm really appreciative of the 3 callers I had. I hope you found the stories uplifting about people who have found ways to be emotionally resilient, and most of it seems, comes from being able to do things for others, and I hope it encourages you to do the same. You've been listening to Chuck Wolf. This is the Emotion Roadmap. Take the wheel and control how you feel, and it's a pleasure being back with you on the radio. I'm on the 1st, 2nd, and 4th Wednesdays of every month from 12 to 1 p.m., and it's on WPKN 89.5 FM, originating in Bridgeport, serving Fairfield, New Haven, and Litchfield counties in Connecticut, Suffolk County in New York, and communities around the world via podcast and streaming at WPKN.org. And for those of you who are watching me in Stimsbury, I hope you all have a great day too. Bye-bye, everybody. Let's see. That's the jazz I'm playing, but I want to play the this right here instead. Okay, just a second. Let's shut that down. And this is what I want to play instead. Here we go. Okay, so long, everybody.
Funding for Simsbury Community Television is provided in part by contributions from viewers like you. Thank you.